Whoop, whoop, whoop. Hey everybody! It is December and Christmassy time here in Japan, obviously, and like around the world, but I'm bringing you the long-awaited video that I had said I would do a month ago, and then life becomes busy. So, without going super long in this opening, here are the five things that I have found about being overweight or plus sized in Japan in my almost full year of being here now. And kind of like disclaimer here that what I've experienced and learned might not happen to everybody. It might be different for men. It might be different depending on like your actual sizes. I am a lot bigger than most of the plus size people I've met here. So there's a couple things that are different, and I'll kind of like toss some information that I've been given from like other people who are a little smaller than me or just a little bit plus sized. I mean, people who aren't really considered plus size, you might feel plus sized here. Something like that. So yeah, let's get into it. The first thing that is a question I get asked on Instagram when people check out my Instagram is clothing, plus size clothing in Japan. So before I moved here, there wasn't really a lot of information that was easily accessible to find out about plus size clothing. Of course, that's since then there's been like, I've been able to find like blogs and other websites that have talked about it, and I've even gone to some of the plus size stores, knowing that they weren't going to fit me anyways. So it is possible to get plus size clothing. I'm not talking about bras or underwear. Those are going to be like probably specially ordered through like Amazon or an overseas shipping company, especially if your bra size is extremely large. I have not seen anything that's like caters to larger undergarments here. But clothing wise, I was able to find stores that, I'm going to go with US sizes here. So if you guys want to look up, you know, the conversion to Australian or England or even Japanese sizes, that some stores can go up to like a size 18. Some stores will go up, I think the highest size I saw was 24. Nothing above that. So if you're bigger than a size 16 or a size 18, which is pushing most of the stores' sizes of 18, you're going to have a really hard time getting clothes here. I personally can't buy any clothes. None. My size is a little too high. I mean, I've lost a pant size since I've gotten here. But currently I can't. So I have to rely on like Torrid and LaneBryant in the States. They do ship internationally to Japan. And there might be other ones from like England or Australia that ship here as well, and you just have to pick the international shipping. And I haven't had to pay any like international tax shipping or anything when I've gotten the few orders I've gotten from Torrid the last couple months. I'm even wearing my Beetlejuice shirt I got from Torrid that came. And yeah, so some of the stores, there's a couple of blogs you can find, but off the kind of thing, department stores, Uniqlo is a really big store here that like men and stuff, you might be able to go in store to find maybe like a size 10 or 12. And then there's some independent places that are online. They do have like ASOS is here. I'm sorry, I'm like looking at this like blog that had some stuff. There's a I can never remember the name of it, but there is a plus size online. I don't know if they have it in stores here. Avenue? No, not Avenue. I'm terrible at this, but there's a bunch. If you just like Google plus size clothing in Japan, you'll find a bunch of blogs that will list different things in different places and different websites. There's a lot more websites that cater to plus size here, up to like size 18, maybe 24, than there is actually anything else. The big, cause like Torrid and LaneBryant's really big in the United States for being like the trendier, well, Torrid's more, I guess, the trendier one, and LaneBryant's like very businessy, and like they do have trendy stuff there too, but here Naomi Watanabe, which is a plus size comedian who, you know, is very famous here and is kind of pushing the whole, you know, plus size is okay here in Japan. She has a brand called I'm gonna probably say this with Punyus, Punyus. They do ship, and as far as I know, I think they're opening a store in New York. They do have a couple stores here in Tokyo area. And during my trip to Tokyo, I went to a store, and it took me forever to find it. It was in Shibuya, in like the big woman's department store. And when we finally found it, the store area itself was very, very tiny, and all the workers there were not plus size. They didn't speak English, which is fine. But if you decide to come to Tokyo and you want to shop at Punyus and Shibuya, just be prepared for no English and really skinny people helping you, if they even help you. My friend and I walked in. I think Punyus goes all up to a size 24 in the US, from what I read. So my friend who came with me, is maybe still, I don't know, she got 24. So when we walked in, she wanted to look at some of the dresses. And I think us being foreigners and also being extremely overweight compared to the normal plus size Japanese person I've seen here, I think might have frightened the staff a little bit, because they kind of just like, oh god, and like hid. We didn't end up buying anything anyways, but it was just kind of funny. So that's kind of my story with Punyas. But you can order online. And like I said, I think they're opening a store in New York the last time I read. So that's clothing. It's very possible to get plus size here, and it's very possible to ship with the power of the internet now to you. So yeah, that's clothes. Number 2, transportation, trains, planes, and automobiles, and buses, and all that kind of stuff. So airplanes here, I flew, like when I flew internationally, I flew on like a China airline and like a US airline. And it was the same, like I could fit just with the seat pushed down, and I needed a seatbelt extension. But I did fly a Japanese airline that's like called Peach, and it's very like a cheaper work businessy kind of airline that just flies through Japan, I think. And when I flew from there, from Sapporo to Sendai, it was the first plane I've ever been on that like I couldn't put the armrest down, and I was like, oh god. So thankfully it wasn't very full. They put me in an aisle by myself. There was no one next to me, and my seatbelt extension worked. But it was the first time ever that I'd been on a plane where like I honestly couldn't fit with the arm down. So if you are like me, where you have like really wide hips and a lot of butt, and like butt and belly, or whatever, the planes in Japan might be a little bit of a problem, but typically they're pretty nice. Trains. So trains are funny. It's first, you're a foreigner, so you have an issue there with trains and foreigners. In general, like people avoid you normally like the plague. Like they will not sit next to you. They will stand in front of you or away from you before they will sit next to you, no matter how tired they are. Occasionally you do get some people who will sit next to you. So I've seen this with people who are extremely thin, people, you know, who are even of Asian descent, like, and they just know you're a foreigner because you're speaking English. They're just like, nah, mm-mm. But when you add being plus sized in, and not just a little chunky, but like heavy, that isolation gets worse. And the trains are really here, like the seats are really meant for smaller people. So with me, anytime I sit in a train, like my thigh and my butt cheek will kind of ooze into the next seat. And people give you dirty looks. just because the trains get so packed here and everyone wants to sit, but you're technically, if you're sitting, taking 2 seats or a seat and a half. I've never had anybody say anything to me or be really rude about it. And I have had some very, very thin Japanese older women sit next to me in a 2-seater before. But if it's ever going to be anything where we're going to be like touching, they won't sit next to you. They'll sit next to another Japanese person where they're like touching, but you as a foreigner, and no, they won't do it. Unless they're being creepy. So yeah, trains, you'll be okay. Just be prepared for maybe like a couple looks. But no one ever says anything. And then, cars, seatbelt here are not too big. Like in the US, I never had a problem with the seatbelt, like still had room. Here, the seatbelts sometimes in the front are just short and like it's a hassle. Back seats are okay, but like the front seat is like a little bit shorter. So if you are a really big in the waist, you might need to bring a seatbelt extension if you're driving for a car, because you have to wear a seatbelt here. Like they will pull you over, and you don't want to do that when you're driving with an international license. So seatbelt extension is going to be needed if you're traveling and you're driving on an international driver's license, especially if you're really big, because like I said, if you guys have seen pictures of me on Instagram or even like in here, I have very, I'm wide down there, so literally it's like this far from buckling. So seatbelt extension. So yeah, that's number 2. So number 3, restaurants and sitting in seats. So there are some restaurants that are a traditional Japanese kind of restaurant, especially if you come into a restaurant that's like a large party or you're going in with a large party. You may get sat where it's a table that the legs are probably like this big, and like the opening underneath is about this big, and there's just little cushions on the ground. So either A, you need to sit on your knees and kneel, or B, you have to sit cross-legged, or if there's no one in front of you, you can put your legs under the table and put them straight. But if you have very big calves, you're not going to fit under the table. Like your leg will not fit under the table. So I did have this happen. I went to a tonkatsu restaurant with a big group, and it was like that with the sitting and the smaller table. And I can't sit Indian style just because of how big I am, and it's very uncomfortable. And even sitting like on my knees, I was too high up, because between like, the way my body is proportioned, I was just sitting way too up. I couldn't, the table was way far down. So how I had to end up sitting was I had to sit at the end with like my feet hanging out into like the open area, because you take your shoes off to get up into these areas. So like it was very awkward, and like even the wait staff looked really confused, and everyone that was with me felt really, really bad, and they were just like, oh my god, we're so sorry. And I was like, no, it's fine. Like, it's embarrassing. It's definitely embarrassing, but what are you gonna do? I mean, that's what's gonna happen sometimes. But there are other places that are kind of like that, but the underneath dips down into like almost like a fire pit looking area. So it looks like you're sitting on the ground, but you're not. You're actually in seats that are under the table. So you kind of have to crawl in and out. So if you have like bad knees or like a bad back, it might be really difficult for you to get up and down from the table area, because you did like get your foot up to pull yourself up out of like the hole. And sometimes they have they're not just open seats like what I'm kind of sitting on. They have like the armrests that are down, and there's just no room for wiggle, so you might have to squeeze in one of those. If you are very heavy, you might have to deal with that. So all in all, it's not so bad, but you may come across seating like that. And sometimes if you go to like places that I've been to izakaya where the table is really, really low and it doesn't move. So like it's like you gotta like suck it in and get in, and then you gotta like squeeze yourself out. Like you might run into that as well. And also if you go to like a single place, like individual seats, there might just be like one row, and that's it. There's not a lot of room to move behind you at all. So like if you sit and you're like pushed out where no one can walk behind you, it's not going to work out. Like you're going to have to either like move all the way to like the other side of the restaurant where no one has to get behind you, or you're going to have to find some way to scoot in enough that people can get behind you. I've been to one of those like once, and it was really weird and people looked really annoyed. So, and it's a little uncomfortable. So yeah, so that's the restaurants being plus size here, restaurants wise. Again, I've only ran into these problems like once, but for the most part, a lot of things are very open, movie table, big chairs, like it just depends on where you go. And also with restaurants, sometimes you take elevators, or the stairs to go up the buildings. And those elevators sometimes are super tiny. Like I fill an elevator with maybe someone like hugging me. But they're supposed to hold like, I think like sometimes like no more than 6 people. And I'm like, oh God, I'm like 5 people. So just prepare for that too. And like, especially we came across where there's a bunch of businessmen waiting to get up to the same restaurant we were going. And me and my friend she was, very big as well. We filled the whole elevator and they looked so mad because they had to wait for the elevator to come back down because none of them could get in with us. Because there was no room. So yeah. So that's restaurants, and seating in restaurants. The next one, the next two are kind of the same. And one I haven't really got too much information on, I guess you could say. I have like a little list here, sorry. So number 4 is people. Japanese people in general. How do they react to you as a plus size person? This is a big thing. When I came here, I was worried that like I was going to get a lot of like evil stares and people were going to be a little rude and like, oh my God, this girl's so big. Like, cause literally I am a lot bigger than the average. Even the Japanese plus size people, I think I might match sumo wrestlers here. To be honest, I was in the sumo wrestling town and I was like, first person as big as me I found. So, my experience, this is not any other person's experience. This might not even be your experience coming here, but from my personal experience, I've only had 2 times in the entire year that I have been made fun of. I know the Japanese words for like fat and like being rude to people who are heavier. And there's only been 2 times that I've come across it. And to be honest, I've personally gotten a lot more compliments than I have anything negative. The 2 things was, one, I had high school boys take a picture of me and then laugh at it, make fun of it, which is, I mean, it's gonna happen. And the second time was at a beach at a festival. A guy came up to me and started making like Godzilla noises, like I was Godzilla, and like stomping, and like was calling me Godzilla. And my other friend ALT who was with me was very upset and like yelled at him in Japanese because like he could speak better Japanese than I could at the time. And I thought he was just being funny, but no, he was making fun of me. But other than that, I normally don't. If they do it, I don't see it. Besides, like, maybe, like, the evil looks on the train, like, you're taking up extra seats, but I'm not really mad at you, but you're taking up extra seat. Besides that, because that's, like, the whole train thing, but people in general don't. I have gotten a lot of pictures taken with me, or when I'm not looking, I can hear you, because cameras here make the noise, so you know when someone's taking a picture. So, I've had a lot of pictures taken of me. I've had a lot of people come and ask me for pictures. I have a bunch of story times if you guys want to hear about it, about really funny things that have happened to me that revolve around pictures and just people in general. I've been called cute and pretty and beautiful and a beautiful woman, and I've had older Japanese men hit on me, and I've had older Japanese men ask for my phone number and my line, and I've had old ladies talk to me about my eyes and my hair, and like never once does anybody ever talk about my body, which it's very rude here to do that anyway. So if they do, it's behind closed doors, it's not in front of me. But like Halloween, I went out and I went with like a group of my friends that were a lot smaller than me. And I was ready for like them to get a lot of pictures taken being foreigners in Halloween costumes here, and I ended up getting a lot of pictures taken, like being pulled aside by like good looking guys, which is nice. So, but yeah, so don't be afraid. People here are pretty decently nice, and if they have something to say, they're not gonna say it to your face. They're gonna not look at you, and they're just gonna be like, oh, and then like later on be like, oh my god, I saw this like mountain of a person. But she was a foreigner or whatever. Again, I'm not too sure. I haven't really, anybody else who's been plus sized, I haven't heard anything bad. Like people who are kind of plus size, they're not like overly plus size. I haven't heard anything bad happen to them. And I can't think of, I think I met one other person who's pretty heavy set like me, and I didn't talk to her enough to know if she's had any weird experiences, but in general, people have been nice and nothing really bad has happened. If anything, it's just mostly like the foreigner thing. It's not that I'm heavy, it's because I'm a foreigner. So yeah, so that segments into my last thing about being overweight here. Number 5, dating. Being heavyset in dating in Japan. So I have not started to look into dating. I don't remember if I said it. You know, my boyfriend and I, we broke up a couple months ago because of the long distance, and I'm not ready to try dating, but I have read a lot of things. I've watched a lot of different videos. I've talked to Japanese women here. I've joined a couple groups that are foreigners that are trying to date. None of them are extremely heavyset. They're normally very like normal sized women. Normal. But I personally thought when I got here that I would not be any Japanese man cup of tea unless it's like a fetish. And besides the occasional oji-san, grandfather, older man, pay me a lot of attention here, like a little too much attention. I get a lot of like older men who come up to me and they're just like, oh, where are you from? And they'll speak all Japanese to me. And even if I'm like, my Japanese is a little bit better now, but back then, like some of the stories, like I'm like, oh, gomen nasai, toto nihongo wakaranai. Like I don't understand. I speak a little bit of Japanese. I'm sorry. They will keep talking. They don't care. And speaking to Japanese women, it's been really weird because Japanese women, you know, people don't touch you here. Like you got your space unless like it's something that's unavoidable, like the street is really busy or the train is busy, then like it's understandable that you're gonna touch someone, but like talking to someone, they're not like, we talk about this all the time that it's funny, but Japanese men tend to like lean really close and I go and then they keep talking or they keep coming back, and it's always older gentlemen that I'm very flattered, but obviously I'm not interested. But it doesn't stop them from like asking for phone numbers or how long I'm going to stay in town and like stuff like that. So younger, I honestly, when we were at Halloween, I got mistaken for a college student. I was so happy about that. It's like so young. I get mistaken to be very young here. I had a couple boys take pictures and a couple boys like flirt with me, ask like what I was doing for the rest of the night, like where I was going, like kind of like flirty. They're a little more, well, so far the men that I've met, there could be, I'm sure men are the same everywhere, so I'm sure there's those jerks out there, that they're a little more gently and a little more slower here at like things. So, dating wise, I can't say for sure. I've heard it's very frustrating here, just because it's very slow here. Like Japanese men will like take forever to like actually be like, let's date, let's actually make us a pair, let's actually do stuff, like, you know. So just because you're plus size doesn't mean that someone here isn't gonna like you. There's also other foreigners here that, you know, you might be their cup of tea. You never know. You just have to put yourself out there. I think there's a couple dating apps here that help you find people that speak English. I know like Tinder's on here. A friend of mine I ended up meeting someone in the military here on Tinder, and they've been together. And a couple other people have met English-speaking Japanese boys. Now, I'm just going to tell you this. If you do not fluently speak Japanese or enough to consider, like, having a good relationship, your pool is going to be, like, 75% other foreigners that speak English, and, like, less than 25%, like, I'm going to say 90% of the pool is going to be foreigners, and then, like, 10% is Japanese people who speak English. So, speak your Japanese. But yeah, so overall, my original thoughts was it was going to be terrible being as heavy as I am here. And it honestly has not been. I mean, I have naturally lost, I'm at 30 pounds now, lost, naturally, like not really even putting an effort into it in the last like 6 months since I like, you know, reined in a little bit of the eating and stuff. So, I'm thirsty, sorry. I love this tea. But yeah, so don't let your size stop you from going anywhere. Don't let it stop you from coming to Japan or trying to date a Japanese boy or a Korean boy or a Chinese boy or any kind of boy. Don't ever let it stop you from living your life. Don't let it stop you from going places. The only thing I will add is that Japan has a lot, if you're going to be in the city, a lot of stairs, a lot of walking. So if you are someone who can't walk up a flight of stairs because you're just, you know, so heavy, or you're just so out of shape that like you can't, Japan might be a little difficult for you to get around Japan. I mean, it's not saying it's not possible, but that might happen. So yeah, like I said, just live your life, have fun. Who cares what people think about you and your body? No matter where you go, you're gonna have people whisper and talk and stuff. And hopefully, if you guys come to Japan and you are plus size, even if you move here to live or work, that you guys have great experiences like I have had. And even those two experiences that were blatantly in my face, don't bother me. They just don't. Like, it's the good outweighs the bad. And it does kind of suck about clothing, not being able to go to the store to buy clothes, but online, baby. Online. I know my sizes at these stores for my country, and boom, here, done, good. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this top 5 things about being plus size in America, Japan. And if you guys want any more videos like this or have any further backup questions, you can always message me through my Instagram account, which is below. And yeah, I'm gonna get going, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!